Hey YouTube, hi. Yes, today's video, well, I'm actually redoing a video that I did earlier. There was a problem with the sound. Um, I was doing a video on the patio where I live, and you just hear the fire sirens and all these things going on. You can hardly hear my voice, and my hand kept on shifting, and so it was cutting my part of my face. Um, what I want to talk about today is about the misconception about black people being the cursed one, and that we were allegedly cursed with dark skin because of a story that was told. Well, a story was told in the book of Genesis in the Bible that Noah had 3 sons, and one of the sons is actually the youngest son. The name was Ham, and he had uncovered his father's nakedness, as the scripture says. And Noah's response when he found out what his youngest son did was, "Cursed be Canaan," and that was to be one of his sons, the firstborn son of Ham. I do not know whether Canaan, Ham's son, whether he was already born at the time, or he was to be born in the future, and he prophesied against the name of the son. Who knows? But either way, he had a son named Canaan, and that the curse that was put upon him was that he would be a servant to his brothers, a slave of slaves. And this script, and in addition to that the curse that was put on him as well was that he became, his skin became black. And this, along with the curse of the slavery, was put upon people of West Africa and Central Africa during the transatlantic slave trade, and it was used to promote and to justify slavery. So you had Japheth and Shem, their descendants, enslaving the descendants of Canaan. But actually, Canaan was a people that lived in modern-day Israel, and the Canaanites were actually, destroyed, and just a remnant, because there was something in the New Testament, and it made mention of a Canaanite woman. So the descendants are actually still living. Any living relatives would still be in the land of Canaan, known as Israel today. But either way, they're saying that people of West Africa and Central Africa are the descendants of Ham, and that slavery was due to a curse. But again, I question that because of certain things in history. I had mentioned in one of my older videos regarding a documentary I saw about the descendants of people, where people came from. And it talked about that, of all the people on the earth, that this one particular group of people who are living now, they live in Southwest Africa. They're erroneously called pygmies, but there is another name for them, and it eludes me at this time. But either way, it said genetically we are all descendants from these people. They are brown-skinned people, like a yellowish brown, and their eyes have what we would call like a slightly Asian look. But either way, it said that we're all genetically, everyone that's moved outside of Africa. So that would mean people from modern-day Asia, the Native Americans from the Americas, and Europeans all share this genetic legacy from this particular group of people. And in this documentary, it mentioned that they had found a skeleton of the oldest human skeleton, well, skull actually, in Europe. And they did a cast of it, and they take the skull, make a copy of it, and then they reconstruct the skeleton. And it looked like what we would say a black person or an African person, and not European. But in the documentary they said, the face is in flux, and it could go either way. It could look a little African, a little Asian, a little European. I think anybody who sees that skull would just say that's a black person, a black male. But either way, why I mentioned this skull is because the skull is about 40,000 years old, and it is they say the predecessor of early Europeans outside of the Neanderthal. And the scientist who's given the documentary is saying, that this person had to be a dark-skinned person. Okay, so that's what science says. So, if in the Bible that the three sons of the three sons of Noah is only about maybe 3,000 years old, and if everybody outside of Africa originates from these people, so these, Noah and his sons had to be a dark race people. And so if they point a finger at Ham and saying that he's cursed and God put a mark on him, actually it wasn't God but Noah. And Noah shouldn't be throwing stones at people. He shouldn't have been drinking and, being like that. But either way, it's a story that's mentioned, and that's what the account is in the story. So that it's impossible to say that he is cursed with dark skin, and that in actuality, that if it's a change in color, so would it make sense that all dark skin, that the curse was then maybe that they were made light? That would make more sense. So just like in this documentary with the origins of people, and she herself said that the first Europeans were all dark-skinned people, and that they became light. So she herself is saying that modern-day Europeans became light. So if there's a change, then that's what the change was, according to scientists. And that if there's a change in color, then wouldn't it be using their logic in the scriptures that who changed was the modern-day European, and that maybe they're actually descendants of Canaan and not us. And so it's a different perspective. Who historically was a slave, who historically was put into exile, who historically was put suffered the Holocaust. It wasn't people that looked like me. So, who's the cursed one? That black people historically have always done well. In fact, the people of Canaan at the time of the Bible, in the time of Genesis, was fantastic agriculturalists. They had grapes the size of, so heavy that two people needed to carry it, according to the story told in Genesis. So these were people who knew science, they knew agriculture, they had technologies, and but the ancient Hebrews didn't have this technology. Okay? So who was the cursed one? Who was the first group that was put in slavery because of who they were ethnically? It wasn't black people. It wasn't the African. So who was it? It was the people, the ancient Hebrews, and not the African. So history is telling us that even though even though modern day blacks are being oppressed, but historically and generationally, it's a new phenomenon for us. But for the Hebrew, historically, they were always being persecuted. Slavery, or what they call put into exile, and then the Holocaust. This is a perpetual curse upon these people, historically. But you don't find the same thing amongst the African. It wasn't the case. And the idea of racism is a new phenomenon imposed upon us by the now European. And so, we're not the cursed one. We don't follow the idea of the what's being told about Ham. It doesn't follow us historically. So who really is Ham? Maybe it's the Hebrew, since they follow the pattern of always being persecuted. And look who's persecuting us now, but these descendants. And they're imposing on the African. So it's just something. And so when I think about what happened to Donald Sterling, the former owner of the LA Clippers, okay, he mentioned his biasness against black people and imposing his hatred upon blacks, even though we didn't do anything to him historically. Okay? So you have a group that's mentioned in the Bible of to fall into persecution, slavery, because of what they are, but yet it wasn't happening to us. Just the concept of slavery because of what we are as black people is just a phenomenon that started 500 years ago. Prior to that, it wasn't us. We were doing well in Africa, but things happen. So this video is it's not a slam dunk, or it's not meant to be a slam dunk on any modern day ethnic group or racial group. It's to expose the lies and inconsistencies that are told on a particular group, black people in particular, and using scripture as a basis for this hatred. Ham was not oppressed. Canaan was not an oppressed people. Canaan were not the first slaves, as a ethnic group, but someone else was, and historically has been a target of slavery or, captivity. Okay, so you just keep in mind. And if a white person or any other ethnic group tries to throw that on you, that you're cursed, you just say, you know, we were all this color, and you're the one that changed, and maybe you're the cursed one. You know, throw it back on them. You know, this is the standard. God made the standard of everyone with dark skin, and those whose color change. And if they want to try to impose it on you, that you change. No, you never changed. They changed. So you walk with pride and dignity. Love yourself, and remind those who try to throw racism at you using the scripture. You just remind them who historically was the slave and who was, tried to, genocide put upon you. Okay? So we're not to hurt people or commit genocide on any human being. We're to love one another. So I just thank you two for listening, and let me know what you think. Share me your thoughts and give me a thumbs up. Take care. Bye-bye.